Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me again. It's Charyns. That's Tearon, period. And you are on another episode of the Ubiquitous Blacks podcast. And as I told you before, I want to try and bring you more guests, more interesting people. And I must say, today, I have one of the most interesting people I can think of because this person is like, it's just like a little gem, just like a hidden gem full of all these incredible things. And she does everything. And I just don't even know how to categorize her. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and sort of explain who she is, what she does, how she does what she does. Charyn Harris, ladies and gentlemen. Charyn, what's up?
Hey, T-Ron, how are you?
I'm vertical. I'm here.
You're vertical. I know. So much going on. Wow.
Tell the people a little bit about you because you have quite an interesting background. It's a lot to cover, so we probably don't have a full day's time to do all that.
Well,
but give them the gist.
Somebody once said to me that I have multiple layers of unique experience. So I'm going to try to go through it as quickly as possible. Born in New Rochelle, New York, raised in Mount Vernon, New York, went to public schools in Mount Vernon, started getting involved in the arts, went to Berklee College of Music, started off as an audio major, ended up as a piano major, majoring in professional music, came back to New York, started working in the music industry. I think my first record that I worked on was I'll Be Sure in effect mode. And eventually moved to Los Angeles, played with a bunch of people as a keyboardist, did some vocals on stuff, did a little bit of writing, just trying to figure it out like everybody else. So, but landing in Los Angeles in 91, in 95, I got this really incredible job playing with the maestro, Barry White, stayed with him till the end of his career. Then I transitioned into music education, did that for a long time, worked as a private teacher, teaching the children of like Eddie Murphy, John Tesh, a couple of other celebrities, which was really great, and also built a stellar music program in Los Angeles and facilitated the partnership between them and Berklee College of Music, where I worked on sending a lot of youth to Berklee, started, really getting into the nonprofit world. And I did that for many years. Then I transitioned into entertainment management, which is where I am today. Kind of in this area of entertainment management and nonprofit and doing a lot of business consulting. And I also love doing just special projects to help people out because I'm passionate about service and about business. And and I forgot, and somewhere in there, I also ran for office. I ran for city council here in Los Angeles.
See, I told y'all.
Yeah, I forget things sometimes.
It's a lot.
I forget things, but
I didn't meet you until the music management portion.
Yes, you met me in the music management. Yes,
but there's so much before that. So you kind of glossed over some stuff, but we're gonna go back a little bit if I can remember everything. One of the big things, like when you because you say, well, I worked with Barry White, and you kind of continue talking. First of all, if I was ever working with Barry White, that's how I would introduce myself to people. I'd be like, hey, so my name is Charyns. So I worked with Barry White. It would be that's how I would describe myself. I think that's so incredible because what was that? How did that happen? How did that come up for you? Or what was that time period like? Serious.
Okay, so that was really interesting. And this is probably one of my favorite stories because, I know you ask me for stories all the time because, we've worked together and known each other. And I'm always like, I don't have any stories, but I do have a Barry White story. And I hope it's a good one. It is a good one. I think it's a good one. And that's all that matters. But anyway, so I got a call from a local talent agent, and she said to me, Barry White is looking for musicians, and specifically female musicians. And quite honestly, I had a lot of anxiety around it. I was like, I don't know, because, the competition. And
What year was this?
This was 95.
Okay.
And I remember I had, moved out here moved to Los Angeles from New York. I was living in Pasadena at the time. And I had just done something with MC Hammer, who did Pumps in a Bump on Arsenio Hall. So if that footage, and I have seen that footage, it's blurry.
I'm gonna go look
because it was like on VHS, but I did Pumps in a Bump with MC Hammer, and I was one of his keyboardists. So I get this call that Barry White is looking for specifically female musicians, and I go, okay. And so I'm immediately going through my library of Barry White, because I grew up listening to Barry White.
Right.
And the thing I loved about him, he influenced me so much, not only with his musicality, but I loved strings, because violin was one of my first instruments. I played violin and cello growing up. So I just really loved how he just fused just the popular feel of the time, because it was kind of like we were, it was coming out of disco, or he was kind of bigger in, disco soul age. And, but he had these strings on there. And so there was this classical element, because I grew up playing classical, but I was in this chasm of being this little Black girl from Mount Vernon, New York, listening to all these different types of music. But this was like the complete amalgamation for me, and just articulated so beautifully. So, I'm listening, and I'm getting nervous, because they're like, okay, he wants to see you. And I'm like, oh my God, Barry White wants to meet me. Oh my God, I gotta play one of his songs. And I'm like shaking, because I had this major anxiety thing going on. So the audition was at the Beverly Hilton Hotel it's on Wilshire and Santa Monica. So he had a suite there. And everyone's in the lobby, and I get there, and there are all these women in the lobby with their guitars. And I was like, I'm a keyboardist. Do I need to bring a keyboard? What do I need to bring? And so they're like, no, you don't need to bring anything. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I was a little green still, even though I had been doing some things. It was kind of early in my career still. And this was like a big artist. So,
right.
So we're lined up, and then the agent that set the whole thing up for me, she says, okay, well, he'll see you now. So I get into the elevator with this big dude that was like Barry White big, because he was like massive. He was like 6'3", 6'4", just one, to me anyway at that time. Just so I get into the elevator, go up, walk down the corridor, and then we knock on the door. This other gentleman opens up, and he's like, hey, how you doing? Real cool guy. Just opens up the door. And then he's like, oh, just stand right here. So then I go into another room in the suite, and here comes Barry White in his smoking jacket, his pajamas, and monogram shoes, like classic, stereotypical Barry White. And I'm like, holy crap is what I'm thinking. So I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, I don't see any keyboard in here. I see like a sofa. This is an audition, right? So I'm like, this is an audition, right? So he's like, hey, so, how are you? And I'm like, great. And I'm really nervous and stuttering. And so he goes, so you went to Berkeley? And I go, yeah, I went to Berkeley. He's like, solid. He's like,
that's so like dope.
Everything you think Barry White would say, he was saying to me. So I was like,
oh
solid.
my gosh.
All right. Then he's like, well, what sign are you? I'm like, Pisces. He goes, oh, my daughter's a Pisces. I love Pisces. So then the other guy comes up and goes, so you read music? I go, yeah. He goes, oh yeah, you went to Berkeley, you read music, great. Okay, that's pretty much, you'll be hearing from us, bye. And I was like, what the heck was that? So then the same dude calls me, Jack Perry calls me and says, all right, so you're available to travel, you got your passport? I go, yeah. He's like, all right, I'm gonna send you some music, hold on. He hooks it all up, sends me stuff, and I'm like, okay, does that mean I have the gig? And it meant I got the gig. I did not have to play a thing. I never played for him before I met him. I've never gone on an audition like that. And he was like, oh, it's easy. Ice cream changes. Yeah, really, really easy. You know, you got it. And I'm like, huh? No, you guys got an orchestra behind you all the time. No. And I'm kind of freaking out, but it was fine. It ended up being absolutely fine. And I ended up working with him from 95 until the end of his career. So I'd say it was about 2001, I think, or maybe 2002 that I did my last job with him. Probably early 2002 that I did my last job with him, which was pretty good. And another interesting fact is I never got fired. And I'm going to tell you why that's interesting. He fired most of his band members every time we came home. So every time we went back, he would go, somebody was gone. And I get a call from Jack. Okay, we're going into rehearsals. We got new background singers. We got a new drummer coming in. We got, I think we had the same bass player because he had the same bass player for years and years. The guitar players, one of the guitar players came in with me, and it was not, for the record, it was not an all-female band. We were not the Love Unlimited Orchestra, but he had a lot of female musicians because he loved working with women. And I have to say, after I stopped working with him, I never wanted to work with anybody else because he had so much integrity. He was so encouraging. And even though he was really an intimidating figure, because like I said, he was 6'4" about, and, he was a big dude.
Yeah. Such a commanding presence.
Oh my God. And he was everything. I mean, I've never seen anybody who just really lived up to what they, that whole, whatever you thought, it's like the man, the myth, the legend, he was really all of that. And just a very gentleman and very clear and very encouraging because he knew I was nervous coming into it. I mean, that was like one of the most nerve-wracking jobs because here I was, I've been playing little clubs, little dives. And here I am playing Madison Square Garden or, or something like that. And it just took everything to a next level. I remember going to the Greek and looking out, and there was Denzel in the audience. And I'm
of course you remember that.
Of course I remember that. And I got some, Denzel was my neighbor growing up. We grew up in the same neighborhood. So, surprise.
And it's so crazy because like being out in LA and going around with you, it's like, you might not know everybody, but everybody knows Charyn. Like everybody knows you.
That's very fun. That's really funny to me because
it's so crazy.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious to me when people go, "Oh yeah, I know Charyn Harris." I'm like, "Do you really?" Because I'm like, I was always that nerd kid growing up. Like no one paid me attention at all. I was not popular. But for some reason, all these people know me and, like on Facebook, it's always funny. Somebody's like friending me and I'm like, okay, I don't know you. We have no friends in common. So
you could play like the 6 degrees of separation game. You could play that with me.
Yeah. It's not 6 degrees with me.
It's not at all.
It really, I got enough. I got a lot of stories, but yeah. But, and that's a good tie-in to some other things about where I am now. because so many people know me and they also know that I'm a resource for things. I would get all these calls about, hey, Charyn, I need somebody to braid my kids' hair. Hey, Charyn, do you have a plumber? Hey, Charyn, do you have, I got my roof is leaking. And, hey, Charyn, can you tell me how to set up a nonprofit? Charyn, it's crazy because, I have from all walks of life. I have my friends, my social friends that know me, or they'll say, just call Charyn Harris. She has all the information.
I tell people that all the time.
I know, too. Call Charyn Harris.
I'd be like, oh no, ask her and she knows.
She knows.
She's got it.
Yeah.
And it could be any topic.
Yeah.
They could be like, where is the nearest flower shop? I'm like, Charyn, where's a flower shop?
I'll be like, oh man, because I actually worked as a florist, so I can see. So I had many jobs, I had many jobs besides, because I am Jamaican, I have many jobs. No. Another stereotype. But when I moved out to LA, I had, there's a lot of stuff that you do when you're trying to get your hustle on. So, I have friends who are florists. So that's another thing. If somebody they need a party planner, they need anything. So I had this idea because we were in the middle of COVID land where our whole landscape changed and, all of our tours, because as you know, working with Macy Gray currently and working as her tour manager and handling her life essentially, everything had changed for us. And I just said to myself, this is a good time to be creative. And because I am a creative, I needed to do something to express that. So I was trying a bunch of things. Like I was doing some cooking, I was making masks. And then I said, hey, I'm going to do this directory site, especially when I looked at the need for the Black and Brown community. I wanted to do something to really have an impact. And also that way people don't have to call me all the time for stuff.
Call you directly.
Right. Call me directly. So, I started working on this concept called Miss Brown's List, and it's an online directory. It's also user-friendly on mobile devices. There will be an app eventually. But so I started kind of teasing it out and building it. And that was one project that I was doing. I've also been working on a directory site for natural hairstylists called Braid Lux, which is still in production. But Miss Brown's List, I actually sat down with somebody and we've been working on it. And now we're doing a soft launch and, have businesses listed on it. And we want to get more businesses, more plumbers and contractors, electricians, gardeners, especially Black-owned businesses. That's really, really key because I feel that when we look at a lot of directory sites, there's a tendency to go for what looks bigger. And
exactly,
for me,
it's all commercial stuff.
It's very commercial. And for me personally, I want to go with service providers that resonate with me. So I want somebody who relates to me. That's really important. Or if I'm going to travel someplace, like I have a Airbnb that I like to stay at in Harlem because it's Black owned. So I really go out of my way to find Black owned businesses that I can patronize because, as we know, a lot of Black dollars do not recycle back to the Black community. I've even heard that people in some communities call us liquid money when they see us coming, which is really sad because they know that the money is going to pour out of our hands and into theirs.
Right.
So we are really helping these other communities thrive instead of our own. So, and these other communities are also very diligent about what they do, and they're very intentional about what they do with the dollars that they make and how to support their community. And I feel that as Black people, that's something that we really have to learn how to do. It's not about, okay, now I have all this extra money, let me go and, buy a big new TV and buy, some sneakers. We spend over $1.2 trillion a year making other people rich. Not million, not billion, but trillion. And those dollars are not recycling back to us, and we are not doing enough to support our own community. So
Right.
that's something I'm really committed to doing.
And I think there is really like a strong need for that, because you do have a lot of people who want to do whatever they can to support Black businesses or support businesses of, people of color in general. And it is hard to like plan out a day or plan to do something and find those places, because so many people don't think that there are any like near them either. So they kind of just give up on the search altogether.
Exactly.
And there aren't enough resources yet to, to really like narrow it down and say, okay, here's where you can go and this is where it is. And something that makes it easy for people, because, if you go and you go on Google and you say, hey, find a shoe store near me, they're going to do exactly that. But it doesn't necessarily, narrow it down because sometimes that location where you want to patronize isn't necessarily nearest you, but there's only, that location. And so it's like you can go out of your way to support that. And eventually you'll get those locations. It's definitely a long process. It's not anything that will happen overnight, but having a directory or having a place to go to is really ideal in that. So
yeah,
we definitely need it.
Well, thank you. And I think we do. And I know that I order a lot online right now because of COVID, because we can't go into these stores. So a lot of brick and mortar stores have closed, but I'm seeing a lot of online businesses. I see online sneaker stores, shoe stores that are Black owned. And I love that. And it's like, if I'm going to buy $600 Jimmy Choos, why can't I support this business with people that look like me? And I mean, I'm not,
exactly.
I'm tired of the names personally. And I'm at the point in my life, I want to go for comfort and I want to do the right thing. But we have to start being a lot more intentional. And that's like that's a buzzword that I like to use a lot in terms of being very intentional about what we're doing, because we're not, and it's hurting us. And it's got to change, and it might not change in my lifetime, but if we start now, it'll change for future generations, and it'll help to create generational wealth. Because it's like, I'm not only with Miss Brown's list am I looking at listing the businesses, but I'm looking at how I can help them even further. So I have I help businesses, for instance, with their digital marketing, and I help them find virtual assistants, fractional services, which is something that's important because a lot of small businesses, they need help. And they can't afford paying somebody $1,800 a month, $2,000 a month. But if I can find someone who it works out for them to have a little bit of extra money in their budget, as well as help the budget of the company, I think that that's a great thing. So, I'm always trying to think about how to be efficient and teach people how to be efficient so that they can get from point A to point B, and helping them to put together a strategic plan that maybe it's a 1, 2, or 3 year plan. But if you follow it, it's going to work. You have to sacrifice, because that's what businesses do to be successful. And we also have to know where the resources are. As Black business owners, we don't know. I just took a small poll with some of my local Black businesses and spoke with the local senator here, Bob Hertzberg, who is just amazing, and really talked about some of the needs of the Black businesses, how they're not getting a lot of the dollars for the SBA loans, how, there are businesses of other businesses that are benefiting a lot more and have less overhead. Like some of these businesses may not have any brick and mortar costs. They don't have as many employees, but they're getting $20,000, $30,000, where that could be a game changer for some of the businesses in our community. So, really looking at how I can start letting these businesses know of these resources, because a lot of them aren't even trying, because the PTSD that we have in our community is so embedded. that we don't even try anymore.
Exactly.
And I want to do my part in changing that. So by adding content to Miss Brown's list, having a blog on there, having vlogs, having people come on and talk about these things, having access to courses in financial literacy, access to courses and trainings about business and leadership. It's key. And we can learn from everybody, but we have to learn from everybody and learn how to bring it back to our community and share it. We're not doing enough of that.
Right. And in addition to learning, how to do that, we also have, like you said, there's that PTSD that happens. And so we have to put ourselves in a place where we unlearn a lot of things too, because there's so much that we don't try because, somebody's told us that we shouldn't, or they give you their horror story about something. So you just say, oh, I'll leave that alone. And you never really
try.
Go for it.
Yeah.
So we have to unlearn a lot of those habits too, because it's so easy to get into a place where you kind of talk yourself out of something, especially because someone that you know of said it.
Right.
Well,
you can't do this. You can't.
I heard that Keisha's cousin said that they went over there and they didn't get the loan, and this is what happened. And so you don't even know Keisha's cousin, but you know Keisha. And so you,
right? Keisha might have gone over there and gotten a loan herself.
Exactly. And that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other thing.
Because there is an issue in the Black community with, especially especially being in entertainment. There's an issue where people hoard information.
Yes.
Because for some reason we have this thing about us being Black people, especially African American people. We have this thing where we have been taught and we believe so much that we don't. There's not enough to go around, right?
Right.
And that affects your decision making. That affects really what you put out and what you share with others. It affects it quite a bit. And I noticed that in just simple transactions or simple things that come up where it's like, well, I know she does hair, so she's got to know a supplier, and you're trying to figure out who that supplier is, and so you go to that person, they're like, oh, I just use this, and they give you no information, they give you nothing, and that's another huge factor I think that plays into just holding us back quite a bit as people. We don't
share resources.
Yeah.
And we have
and that's not beneficial.
Right.
That's not beneficial at all.
We also have a mentality of lack and limitation instead of abundance. There is enough for everybody. There's enough to go around. If you look at how many rich white people there are. Come on.
Exactly.
It's like, if you look at any other culture, and some cultures I know are just a lot more insular and they don't maybe share as much. But if we look at some other cultures, we see nobody's, they're not nitpicking. They're not keeping information. They're sharing information, and they're not afraid to do that. But we've been that's what and that's another thing in terms of the PTSD that has been embedded in us. And it's become genetic. It's become, especially for the past 400 years, from not being able to trust people that don't look like us, and then having this psychological warfare on us where we're not able to trust each other. So, it's like we just have to, we have to trust. And if somebody does wrong by us, we have to learn how to call them out. We don't do enough of that. And we have to, and even when it comes down to attitudes, business people and attitudes. And, we got some of us that are, you're like, dang, I got to deal with them. And God, I dealt with a service provider for, for a business that I work with. And I was like, man, he's got a bad attitude. And he was a nice guy, but I could see he was traumatized because he had bad experiences, dealing with people that looked like him, us, dealing with other Black people that did him wrong. And he's like, I'm just trying to survive here. And he felt that he had gotten burnt before. So, it's like once bitten, twice shy.
Right.
And
But you know what
and
having that bad
yeah.
attitude does. That having that bad attitude gets you kicked off of Barry White's tour.
And let me tell you, why did I not get kicked off the tour? Because I don't have a bad attitude. Because I'm accountable and I'm responsible, and and I don't trip about stuff. And it's not that I trust everybody, and it's not, and I don't feel like I have to watch my back all the time or anything like that. But I just really take the attitude that if somebody does something kind of underhanded, maybe they need, like if somebody takes money from me, for instance, maybe they need that a little more than I think they do. And they have some type of shame around saying, I really need this money. So they kind of make it this big story.
Exactly.
It's like, you know what, if you need money and if I have it, I'm going to help you out with this, or I'm going to help to point you in a direction to make sure that you're going to be taken care of because you look like me. That's
Right.
what we need to learn how to do instead of how can I take from somebody because I don't have.
Exactly.
It's
and that's really like what it comes down to. And that's why, like you said, being a creative, you have to find those outlets. And that's kind of what I did here with creating this podcast. But I wanted it to be very specific, and what you're doing just fits in so perfectly, because I think that as Black people and African people and, African people of African descent, just all over, we're everywhere, but we have not yet begun to have the conversations or share the resources between ourselves. And we have to just get down to just like the root of the situation and be like, yo, okay, the only reason we don't get along or the only reason we don't understand each other is because nobody has talked about it. And you can find, those things through, you can be able to communicate with people through things like food, through things like, like you said, just sharing resources and education, just finding those common grounds, and then everything else grows from that.
That's true.
Will then be able to talk to people who look like you, but are from totally different worlds than yourself. And you can still find that, because one thing that I found that is common between everyone, and when I say everyone, I mean all Black people everywhere, is we all have the same experience with our Black mothers, no matter where you are from. I kid you not. Everybody, like, you grow up and you ask for something and your parents was like, well, are you like, you want some McDonald's? It's like, well, do you got some McDonald's money? There's a line for that in every Black household around the world. There's something that matches that. Or
and I have to say I did not have that experience. But I can tell you that I am that Black mother.
Exactly.
I am really,
because you pick it up somewhere, and you pick it up, in the community, just in general, or just over time, and you can't wait. You can't wait to utilize some of that stuff.
Oh my God, I have so much fun.
Your parents want eventually, and you just can't wait to like I know for myself, like when I was growing up, since I was the youngest, I got away with so much. Like I didn't have to clean up as much as my older siblings and stuff, and it was great. But and so I like legit to the point that I would have my own room, and it would get really dirty over time, and my brothers would have to help me clean up.
Oh my God.
And I don't regret it. I enjoyed it.
Of course you did.
But as I've gotten older and on my own, like my mom, I swear we felt like she cleaned up every day. And I remember those days where she'd wake up and she'd turn on some music, and you just wake up to like the smell of bleach, to just everything going. And there's just deep cleaning that happens. And we felt like she did it every day, in our minds. But I find myself at least once a week, as in my own, I do that now. And I do it like I enjoy being able to get up and like clean up my place and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, this is what Mama used to do all the time. And I hated it. But it's translating over to now where I'm like, oh, I could do this. This is nothing. And I used to cry about it and not want to clean up. And now I'm just like, well, I guess I'll do these dishes. Or I'll be at work, like sitting up, and I'll be thinking to myself, oh, I can't wait to go home and wash clothes. Stuff that I shouldn't even, used to not enjoy, but now I'm like, I find joy in it only because it reminds me of those times and, those connections to what I grew up with. But other than that, I try not to do too much. Once a week is enough for me.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I mean, even though, it's just me and my daughter in my house, it just gets to be really overwhelming sometimes. Or we have a cat now. We have a kitten and she's all over the place. And I have a thing about animals. Like, I need clean animals. So I give the kitten a bath like every other day.
Right. Right.
Poor thing's going to probably get eczema from me.
But for real though, it's like,
yeah, but yeah, I mean, because you know what, they like to jump on things. I'm always washing her paws because she's in and out her litter box, and that's like a thing that I have. It just drives me crazy, and I was like, okay, if we're gonna have a cat here, I got to have a clean cat, and we don't let her outside or anything. And I'm a little exactly. OCD with the cat.
You have to be.
Yeah, you have to be, but
especially now.
Yeah. But I mean, I think you brought up some really good points about, who we are culturally and family and how we need to carry on some traditions and, and I know that I am that mama with my child. I'm like, all right, you're 17. You need to go get a job. You need to pay your own cell phone bill. You need to start paying some rent up in here, because I mean, kids now have it a lot easier than I did. I mean, I was working at 11 years old. I was a paper girl, and at 15 I was working at an amusement park, and I graduated high school at 16 and I worked in a retail shop and did that for some time. I worked for a department store until I went to college, and then even when I went to college I worked. And, right. I worked for the telephone company in the summer. So my mother always made sure that I stayed busy. It's a little different now when we're in these communities that are just wider spread. And we don't have the same sense of community because a lot of people have migrated from their homes. So it's a lot. It's different than when you had neighbors that looked like you, that were professionals even. And in the neighborhoods now, especially when I was working in South LA, it was a really impoverished neighborhood, and they didn't have, all the doctors, lawyers, they moved out. And, the doctors, lawyers, teachers, they weren't living in that neighborhood because they had made a little more money. So they wanted to move out someplace that was a little nicer.
And that used to be like a badge of honor where it's like, oh, I'm moving into the rich white neighborhood.
I know.
It's like.
I know. And I mean, and we have to realize that the value is in our own neighborhood, because that same community that people were trying to get away from is facing now gentrification because they're so close to downtown LA. So now you have, a lot of people that historically would never go down there, just like Harlem. Harlem isn't, Black anymore. My mother was born in Harlem. And, we had a lot of, Harlem had great apartments. I have an aunt who's been living there. She's 95 and she's been living there since 1943 in the same apartment.
Could you imagine all the changes
she has seen quite a bit, and she's very active, and she's sharper than me. Her knees are certainly better than mine because she lives in a 4-story walk-up. But when you see that change, and I go to her apartment when I go to visit her, and I'm like, oh wow, there's a pub on one corner, and then there's a brewery on one corner. There's an Indian restaurant around the corner that is like a fine dining. I mean, these are not dives that I'm talking about, but for a huge period of time, everything was so run down. So I mean, gentrification has its place. But also we have to look at those areas that are being gentrified and think about scooping up that property because it will increase in value. And property is one of the best investments. Yes.
Because there's so many people who at the time owned their homes and things like that in their own neighborhoods. And then they sold them so soon, and then they left, and somebody came and bought it for a low price. And then now it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. and like it happens so frequently. You see it all the time.
Yeah.
Where people just have to get away so they don't, hold it or they don't keep it. And then that area becomes like this hot spot and everything is overpriced and all the properties
exactly.
are, have gone up. And it's like, just imagine if you held on to that, what I mean?
Right. And those landlords are moving people out that are renting because they know that they can get more value, or they're selling their buildings. And I see it even in my own, I'm in North Hollywood. And I mean, there aren't a lot of Black families where I am, but I get calls almost every day from people trying to buy my home. And they're building these 2-story McMansions on these properties, and they're building 2 of them on one property. So it's, it's kind of crazy and it's happening all over. But I think we really have to look at and figure out how to preserve and how to keep the integrity of these communities, because the Black community is disbanding and it's really critical to our survival and growth and just our lineage, to make sure that we have some type of history, but our history is being erased. And, we have to not just think about moving out of these areas, but, tear down that house and build a new one, because it's going to cost you the same. And guess what? Other people are going to follow suit, and teach other people how to do that. If you want to do something in your community, stay there, create a legacy.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So you schooling them.
I know.
You're teaching them.
That's what I do.
Nothing else.
That's what I do. Well, that's something, because I worked in nonprofit for so long. I'm really looking at building this list. I'm probably going to call it the Harris list, not to confuse it with Miss Brown's list, which is more services, but the Harris list, really looking at social services and resources and, who are the nonprofits that may be able to help you to keep your home, who may have money for small businesses that you can work with, who can you go to if you have a question. And I love it when people call me and ask me advice also. So, and that's why I consult with small businesses and help them with their strategic planning, and help nonprofits with their growth plan and strategic planning as well. Because, we need to help each other.
Yeah. Well, Charyyn, you're on the right track, and I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you. Smart.
And I'm proud to always brag on you and stuff.
Oh, you're so funny. Well, I'm really proud of you. And I've always adored working with you. You're so multi-talented, and I love your cooking videos. And, we're going to get those on Miss Brown's list, and we're going to have your podcast on Miss Brown's list also, because you get interesting people.
And I appreciate that. I'll have to try to make like some exclusive content for Miss Brown's list.
Yeah, take a look, and we'll brand it, and and get it up there, because I think it's always fun, and that's it. We want to share things with people. We want to give them a platform, and and many years ago, when I was running for office, I reached out to Ariana Huffington. I had met her a couple of times with the nonprofit I had worked with, and I was like, I'm running for office, and the Huffington Post was just kind of starting. So this was, maybe about, I don't know, seven years ago or so, maybe 8 years ago. And she said to me, what I can give you, I'm not able to support you in your campaign, but I can give you a platform for your voice. I want to invite you to blog for the Huffington Post, which I really enjoyed doing. I wish I had done a lot more of it. Because as it grew, then you had Black voices, then you had all these other elements. Right. But I just realized it was so smart to invite people so that their voices are heard. You don't have to do everything yourself, and that's the thing, in our community, we want to try to do everything ourselves. We don't have to, and we shouldn't. We need to think in numbers, and we need to think, so-and-so does something, let me give them a place so that other people can see them. So I look at that. I look at Ms. Brown's list as that, repository where people can find out what other people are doing in the community and maybe inspire.
Right. I'm down.
Because
all the way.
you're inspiring, T-Ron. You really got it together, and I'm super proud of you to be as, young as you are and independent and, doing your thing and focused. And, I think a lot of people will learn from you as well. So we have to be role models.
I hope so. That's all I can do is just keep chipping away at it and, keep trying to do right and, do right by people. And hopefully all the stuff comes out clean on the other end,
Yep,
But
exactly.
before we go here, before we leave, because you have like I said, you have so much going on. Is there anything you want to leave the listeners with, or anything you want to particularly promote or focus on right now, or anything you have coming up? Because we can't be on the road, which honestly, I miss everybody.
I know, we miss you too. We missed you, and oh man, miss our late nights after the show, just kind of hanging out, eating pizza.
Exactly, doing stuff we didn't have no business doing.
I know, but it's good times. It'll come back eventually.
What do you have that you're focusing on in the short term?
So in the short term, I am, really focused on pushing Miss Brown's List out, and it'll be up probably in about 2 or 3 weeks in mid-September 2020, missbrownslist.com. So that is one thing that I'm really focused on. Also working with Macy Gray on building out her nonprofit, which is mygood.org. Really a great cause supporting the families of victims of police killings and helping them out with mental health services, whatever resources they need to make sure that they're okay, emergency funds. There's just so much that we don't know that goes on behind the scenes, especially when all of the media goes away, and how these families have to keep pushing through. And we don't kind of know a lot of things. We don't see a lot from our end, but really trying to go in and help them and bring attention to, what they're going to, and helping them out. And, we're about to vote now. We're about to vote for a new president. So looking at how I can help mobilize people to get out to vote, and, working with several organizations on initiatives to do that, to not only register to vote, but to get people to the polls. That's another thing that's really important. We have to get to the polls, and we cannot be distracted. Otherwise, we're going to go through what we're going through for another 4 years, and that's not going to be good for anybody. We have got to. Yes, exactly. I can't. I can't.
Charyyn, I do want to thank you for coming through and just sharing everything that you're up to, and just trying to bring the Black community together, especially on a level of finding resources and information. And if you want to find more information, where can the people go, like on the internet, to find out more about what you're doing and find yourself as well?
Oh, they can find me. I am on Facebook. They can find Miss Brown's List on Facebook, on Instagram, and that way they can also see the announcement when we go live. So missbrownslist.com will be up and running by September 15th, 2020. So if it's after this date that you are listening, you will find us. So that's where you can find us. You can find me, Charyyn, with a C, Charyn Harris. I am on Instagram as well. So, look me up, follow me, follow Miss Brown's List, and let's have some fun. Let's get some Black businesses on there. And I am Black in Los Angeles.
And you know where I'm Black at, but you can be Black anywhere. If you're Black in Nebraska, guess what? We are still Black everywhere.
We are Black
and
everywhere.
You can always find the podcast. You can go on to all social media at Ubiquitous Blacks. And also, if you want to send us questions, queries, if you want to find more information about our guest here, you can email me at ubiquitousblacks@gmail.com. And also, if you go on to Apple Music specifically and you leave a 5-star review. Now, if you are leaving anything less than 5 stars, don't leave it. You can keep it to yourself. We good. And if you leave a review, I'll read it on the program. And of course, I'm unprepared as usual, so I haven't actually pulled up anything. But
you are too funny. You are.
But if we need to, we will.
Well, thank you, T-Ron, for having me. Next time, I want to interview you because you are very interesting.
Yeah, that'll be a whole other thing, man. All right, I'm out. I'll talk to you soon, Charyyn.
Talk to you soon, T-Ron.